Welcome to your personalized deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty fascinating, the world of 2042. And before you jump to conclusions, no, we're not diving into flying cars or robot butlers.
Right, we're focused on something much more grounded, a report called Navigating the Future. It takes a hard look at the challenges we're facing now and how they might play out 2 decades down the line.
So think of this as our deep dive into a future shaped by intensified global challenges, climate change, resource scarcity, a job market in constant flux.
Mm.
We're talking real world stuff, the things that will actually impact your life.
Exactly. What's interesting about this report is that it doesn't just present these challenges as inevitable doom and gloom. It explores potential solutions both on an individual and societal level.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's jump into the first challenge. The report kicks off with a topic that's already on everyone's radar, climate change.
And they don't sugarcoat it. By 2042, they project a world where climate change has fundamentally reshaped our reality. Think coastal cities grappling with floods 10 times more frequently than today, or agricultural regions facing chronic droughts.
Wow, that's a sobering thought. So in this scenario, what can you, our listener, actually do to adapt? The report suggests some interesting individual solutions. For instance, building more resilient homes.
Yes, they delve into the concept of climate-proof housing structures designed to withstand extreme weather events. Imagine homes built on stilts to avoid flood damage, or with reinforced roofs to handle intense storms.
That actually makes a lot of sense. It's about proactive planning, adapting our homes to the changing environment. What other individual actions do they recommend?
Water conservation takes center stage. Think rainwater harvesting systems, low-flow appliances, and drought-resistant landscaping. They even mention xeriscaping, which uses native drought-tolerant plants to reduce outdoor water usage.
So it's about making everyday choices that lessen our environmental impact. That reminds me of something else they touched on, growing food locally.
Absolutely. The report envisions a rise in community gardens and urban farming initiatives, making fresh produce more accessible while shrinking our reliance on those long, complex supply chains. Imagine picking your tomatoes right in your neighborhood.
I love that idea, but let's face it, individual actions can only go so far. What kind of large-scale societal shifts need to happen to truly tackle climate change?
Well, they call for massive investment in renewable energy infrastructure. Think solar farms sprawling across deserts, offshore wind turbines, harnessing ocean power, and maybe even some futuristic energy tech we haven't even dreamed up yet.
So a fundamental shift away from fossil fuels, that makes sense. But what about the immediate impacts of climate change? How do we adapt to the changes that are already happening?
They suggest a two-pronged approach, adaptation and mitigation. For coastal cities, they talk about innovative flood defenses like seawalls, surge barriers, and even the relocation of critical infrastructure to higher ground.
Okay, so kind of like a blend of futuristic engineering and some tough decisions about how we use land. But isn't international cooperation crucial here? No single country can solve climate change alone.
You're absolutely right. The report stresses the need for global frameworks and agreements, not just on reducing emissions, but also on sharing the responsibility for climate refugees and providing aid to vulnerable nations.
It sounds like climate change is just the tip of the iceberg. What's the next big challenge they tackle?
The one that's intrinsically linked to climate change, resource scarcity. By 2042, with a projected global population of 10 billion, the demand for food, water, and energy will be immense.
And I imagine climate change will only amplify these scarcities, right? Droughts and floods disrupting agriculture water sources becoming more unpredictable.
Precisely. And that's where the report's emphasis on individual action becomes even more critical. They highlight the need to shift our consumption patterns, not through deprivation, but through mindful choices.
So being more conscious of what we buy, prioritizing needs over wants, and maybe rethinking that impulse purchase. But what about those bigger picture solutions, the societal shifts that need to happen?
Here's where the concept of a circular economy comes into play. It's about minimizing waste and maximizing resource use through strategies like reusing, repairing, and recycling products. Imagine a world where products are designed to be easily disassembled and their components reused.
It's kind of like a closed loop, keeping resources in circulation as long as possible.
I like that. And what about food? With a growing population, how do we ensure everyone has enough to eat?
The report suggests a two-pronged approach focusing on both supply and demand. On the supply side, they advocate for sustainable agriculture practices like precision irrigation, which uses sensors and data to optimize water use. They also highlight the need to reduce food waste throughout the supply chain.
And on the demand side, what changes can individuals make to ease the strain on food resources? They encourage exploring plant-based diets, even if it's just a few meatless meals a week. Reducing our reliance on animal products frees up significant resources, particularly land and water.
Okay, so it's about making more sustainable choices in our everyday lives. But individual actions can only go so far. What kind of large-scale societal changes do they propose to tackle this issue?
Well, for starters, they argue for major investments in water management technologies. Think desalination plants turning seawater into fresh water, or advanced irrigation systems delivering water precisely where it's needed, minimizing waste.
Those are some pretty high-tech solutions. And what about food production itself? How do they envision agriculture adapting to these challenges?
They highlight the need for resilient and adaptable farming practices. Think vertical farms in urban centers producing food closer to consumers or drought-resistant crops engineered to thrive in arid conditions.
So it's about rethinking how and where we grow our food. But it's not just about technology, right? Don't they also address the social and economic aspects of resource scarcity?
Absolutely. They argue that we need to address poverty and inequality, which exacerbate resource scarcity. They even mention concepts like universal basic income, providing a financial safety net for those struggling to access essential resources.
That's a pretty radical idea. It sounds like they're really thinking outside the box here. Okay, on to the next challenge. The report dives into something that always gets people talking: the future of work.
And it's not all rosy. By 2042, they predict that automation and AI will have reshaped the job market dramatically. Some sectors will see massive job losses, while others will boom with new opportunities.
So it's not just about robots taking our jobs, it's about the entire landscape of work shifting beneath our feet. What do they suggest individuals can do to navigate this turbulent job market?
They emphasize the need for lifelong learning and constantly updating your skills. Think online courses, boot camps, apprenticeships, anything that keeps you ahead of the curve.
So it's not enough to just get a degree and coast on that for the rest of your career. You've got to be adaptable and willing to learn new things throughout your life. Yeah. What specific skills do they recommend focusing on?
They highlight the importance of skills that are uniquely human and less likely to be automated. Things like creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, emotional intelligence, and complex communication.
So those soft skills that robots, at least for now, can't replicate, but it can't all be on individuals, right? What about the societal changes needed to address this challenge?
They propose a significant overhaul of our education systems. Instead of just churning out graduates prepared for jobs that might not exist in a few years, they advocate for a more agile and adaptable approach to education, one that equips people with the tools and mindsets to thrive in a rapidly changing world.
So it's about preparing people not just for specific jobs, but for a lifetime of learning and adaptation. What about the people who are already in the workforce and might be facing displacement due to automation? What solutions do they offer for them?
They suggest expanding access to retraining programs and creating new pathways for career transitions. They even mention things like government-funded returnships to help people re-enter the workforce after periods of unemployment.
That's interesting. It's like recognizing that career paths won't be linear anymore. They'll be more like winding, branching paths. But what about the ethical considerations of AI? Do they address that at all?
Absolutely. They stress the importance of developing and deploying AI ethically, ensuring that these powerful technologies benefit humanity as a whole and don't exacerbate existing inequalities.
Okay, so it's not just about the technical aspects of AI, it's about the social and ethical implications as well. I'm sensing a theme here: individual action paired with systemic change.
Exactly. And that brings us to another challenge that's woven throughout the report: misinformation and political polarization.
Oh boy, that's a tough one. It feels like we're already struggling with that now with all the fake news and echo chambers online. How do they see this playing out in 2042?
They paint a rather bleak picture of a world where trust in institutions has eroded even further and social divisions run deeper, fueled by the constant flow of misinformation and the algorithms that keep us trapped in our own filter bubbles.
It sounds like a recipe for gridlock, making it even harder to address the other challenges we've discussed. So in this environment, what can individuals do to navigate this minefield of information?
They stress the importance of developing strong media literacy skills. It's about being able to critically evaluate information sources, recognizing bias, and discerning fact from fiction in an increasingly complex and noisy media landscape.
So becoming savvy information consumers, not just passive sponges soaking it all up. What specific strategies do they suggest for cultivating those media literacy skills?
They encourage things like fact-checking information before sharing it online, diversifying your news sources to get a broader range of perspectives, and being aware of your own biases and how they might influence your interpretation of information.
It's like becoming your own personal fact checker and bias detector. But media literacy alone can't solve the problem, right?
What about the broader societal solutions they propose?
They advocate for promoting media literacy education in schools and communities, equipping people with the tools and critical thinking skills to navigate the digital world effectively. They also suggest exploring regulations for social media platforms to combat the spread of misinformation.
Okay, so it's about individual empowerment through media literacy paired with some kind of systemic intervention to rein in the worst excesses of the online world. What's next on their list of challenges?
The one that often gets overlooked but has the potential to disrupt our lives in a major way: cyberattacks.
And with everything becoming increasingly digital and interconnected, I imagine cyberattacks will only become more sophisticated and potentially devastating.
Exactly. They envision a world where hackers can target not just our personal data, but also critical infrastructure like power grids, hospitals, financial institutions, and even transportation systems. That's a scary thought. So, in this world of constant cyber threats, what can individuals do to protect themselves?
They stress the importance of practicing good cybersecurity hygiene. Think strong passwords, two-factor authentication, regularly updating software, being cautious about phishing attempts, and being mindful of what information you share online.
So, being proactive and taking responsibility for our own digital security. But it can't just be about individual vigilance, right? What about the larger scale solutions?
They call for significant investments in cybersecurity infrastructure to strengthen the defenses of critical systems. Imagine a world where our power grids and hospitals are fortified against cyber attacks with robust backup systems in place.
That makes sense. And what about holding the attackers accountable? How do they address the issue of cybercrime?
They argue for stronger international agreements and cooperation on cybercrime. Cyber attacks often transcend national borders, so it's crucial to have a coordinated global response to deter and prosecute cybercriminals.
Okay, so it's about bolstering our defenses while also working collaboratively to crack down on the perpetrators. But with all this focus on technology and digital threats, it's easy to forget about some of the more fundamental challenges we face.
That's true, and that brings us to their final challenge: antibiotic resistance.
Now, this might not be as flashy as AI or cyber attacks, but it's a silent threat with potentially catastrophic consequences. Remind us why antibiotic resistance is such a big deal.
Antibiotics are our primary weapons against bacterial infections, but over time, bacteria can evolve and become resistant to these drugs, making common infections much more difficult and sometimes even impossible to treat.
So imagine a world where a simple cut or a urinary tract infection could become life-threatening. That's a scary thought. What do they suggest individuals can do to combat this threat?
They emphasize the importance of using antibiotics responsibly. That means taking them only when prescribed by a doctor and completing the full course of treatment, even if you start feeling better before you finish all the pills.
So no more self-medicating or stopping antibiotics early, but individual actions can only go so far, right? What kind of societal changes do they recommend?
They call for stricter regulations on antibiotic use, both in humans and animals. This means reducing unnecessary prescriptions and limiting the use of antibiotics in livestock, which is a major driver of antibiotic resistance.
Okay, so it's about using these powerful drugs wisely and judiciously. But what about finding new solutions? Don't they also talk about the need for new antibiotics and alternative therapies?
Absolutely. They emphasize the importance of investing in research and development of new antibiotics and alternative therapies like phage therapy, which uses viruses to target bacteria, or antimicrobial peptides, which are naturally occurring molecules that can kill bacteria.
So it's a multi-pronged approach, using existing antibiotics responsibly, developing new solutions, and changing the systems that contribute to the problem. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground here. It seems like the world of 2042, as envisioned by this report, is full of challenges. But is there any room for optimism? Do they offer any glimmers of hope amidst all these daunting projections?
What's striking about this report is that while it acknowledges the gravity of these challenges, it also emphasizes the incredible capacity for human ingenuity and resilience. Throughout history, humans have faced seemingly insurmountable obstacles and found innovative solutions.
I love that perspective. It's not about sugarcoating the difficulties, but about recognizing our potential to adapt and innovate. But it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of these challenges. What specific suggestions do they offer for staying engaged and hopeful in the face of such complexity?
One key suggestion is to focus on solutions, not just problems. Instead of getting bogged down in the negativity, they encourage actively seeking out information about the people and organizations working on innovative solutions to these challenges.
So shifting our attention from the what's wrong to the what can we do about it. That makes a lot of sense. What else do they recommend?
They emphasize the importance of connecting with others who share your concerns. Joining a local environmental group, volunteering for a cause you care about, or even just having conversations with friends and family about these issues can help you feel less isolated and more empowered to take action.
It's about finding your tribe, the people who get it and are working towards a better future.
That's a great point. Okay, we've explored 6 major challenges so far, but I have a feeling there's more to unpack. What else did this report reveal about the world of 2042?
Well, one interesting aspect they highlight is the growing importance of something they call future literacy.
Future literacy. That sounds intriguing. What exactly does that mean?
It's about developing the skills and mindset to not just anticipate the future, but to actively shape it. It involves things like understanding trends, identifying emerging issues, and thinking critically about the potential consequences of our choices today. So it's about becoming more proactive and intentional about the future we're creating, rather than just letting it happen to us. But that can feel overwhelming, right? How do we even begin to wrap our heads around something as vast and complex as the future?
That's where this report comes in handy. It offers a framework for thinking about the future, a set of lenses through which we can examine the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
Okay, I'm definitely ready to dive deeper into that. But before we do, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll explore this concept of future literacy and unpack some of the specific tools and strategies they suggest for navigating the complexities of 2042. All right, we're back and ready to unpack this intriguing concept of future literacy. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi novel, but you're telling me it's actually a crucial skill for navigating the world of 2042.
It might sound futuristic, but it's really about equipping ourselves with the mental tools to think critically and creatively about the future. The report argues that in a world of accelerating change and complexity, future literacy is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity.
Okay, I'm all ears. Break it down for me. What specific skills and mindsets does future literacy involve?
One key element is systems thinking. Remember that interconnectedness we talked about earlier. Future literacy requires understanding those complex relationships between different trends and forces. It's about seeing the bigger picture and recognizing that actions in one area can have ripple effects across multiple domains.
So it's about moving beyond linear thinking and embracing the messy, interconnected reality of the world. What other skills do they highlight?
They emphasize the importance of foresight, the ability to anticipate future trends and challenges. This isn't about predicting the future with certainty, but about developing a sense of what's possible, what's probable, and what we need to prepare for.
That makes sense. Instead of being blindsided by change, we can proactively prepare for it. But how do we actually develop this foresight? Do they offer any practical tools or methods?
They suggest a variety of approaches, from scenario planning, where you imagine multiple possible futures, to trend analysis, where you track emerging patterns and extrapolate their potential impacts. They even mention things like wildcard analysis, where you consider those low-probability, high-impact events that could dramatically reshape the landscape.
So it's about broadening our perspectives, challenging our assumptions, and considering a wider range of possibilities. But foresight alone isn't enough, right? We also need to be able to act on that knowledge.
Exactly. That's where agency comes in. Future literacy is not just about passively observing the future, it's about actively shaping it. It's about recognizing that we have choices, that our actions today can influence the course of events tomorrow.
Okay, so it's about empowering ourselves to become active participants in creating the future we want. But I imagine this can feel daunting, right? How do we avoid getting overwhelmed by the sheer scale of it all?
The report emphasizes the importance of starting small. It's about taking those small, everyday actions that align with the future you want to see. Maybe it's changing your consumption habits, volunteering in your community, or simply having conversations with others about these issues. Those small actions can ripple outward, creating a collective momentum for change.
I love that. It's about reclaiming our agency, one choice, one action at a time. But let's get back to those 6 challenges we discussed earlier. How does future literacy help us navigate those specific issues? Let's start with climate change. How does this future-oriented thinking apply to that challenge?
In the context of climate change, future literacy helps us move beyond the doom and gloom and focus on solutions. It empowers us to imagine a future where we've successfully transitioned to a clean energy economy, where cities are designed to be resilient to climate impacts, and where individuals are actively engaged in creating a more sustainable world.
So it's about shifting our mindset from one of fear and resignation to one of possibility and action. But what about resource scarcity? How does future literacy help us address that challenge?
Future literacy encourages us to rethink our relationship with resources. It's about moving away from a linear take, make, dispose model to a more circular economy where resources are used efficiently and waste is minimized. It's about designing products for durability and repairability and embracing sharing and collaborative consumption models.
So it's about shifting our consumption patterns and embracing a more sustainable approach to resource management. What about the future of work? How does future literacy apply to that ever-evolving landscape?
In the context of work, future literacy helps us embrace the reality of lifelong learning and adaptation. It's about recognizing that career paths will be less linear and more fluid, requiring us to constantly update our skills and embrace new opportunities. It's about developing those uniquely human skills that are less likely to be automated, those skills that involve creativity, critical thinking, and complex communication.
So it's about becoming agile learners and adaptable workers ready to navigate a job market in constant flux. What about the challenge of misinformation and political polarization? How can future literacy help us address that increasingly divisive landscape?
Future literacy empowers us to become critical consumers of information. It's about developing those media literacy skills to distinguish fact from fiction, to recognize bias and manipulation, and to engage in constructive dialogue across differences. It's about cultivating a sense of shared responsibility for the quality of information circulating in our communities.
So it's about becoming more discerning and responsible citizens in the digital age. What about cyberattacks? How does future literacy apply to that increasingly sophisticated threat?
In the realm of cybersecurity, future literacy encourages us to adopt a proactive and preventative approach. It's about understanding the evolving nature of cyber threats, practicing good cybersecurity hygiene, and advocating for policies that strengthen our digital defenses. It's about recognizing that cybersecurity is not just a technical issue, it's a societal issue that requires collective action and responsibility.
So it's about becoming more cyber aware and cyber savvy, both as individuals and as a society. And finally, what about antibiotic resistance? How can future literacy help us address that silent but potentially devastating threat?
Future literacy encourages us to think long-term about the consequences of our actions today. It's about using antibiotics responsibly, supporting research into new therapies, and advocating for policies that promote responsible antibiotic use in both human and animal medicine. It's about recognizing that the choices we make today will have a profound impact on the health and well-being of future generations.
So it's about taking a more holistic and future-oriented approach to healthcare. Wow, it seems like this concept of future literacy has a lot to offer. It's not just about predicting the future, it's about equipping ourselves with the tools and mindsets to shape it. But let's face it, not everyone is going to embrace this future-oriented thinking. What about the people who are resistant to change, who cling to the familiar and fear the unknown? How does the report address that challenge?
The report acknowledges that resistance to change is a natural human response. But it also argues that embracing the future is not about abandoning the past. It's about building on it. It's about recognizing that progress and innovation are built on the foundations of what came before.
So it's not about throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's about evolving and adapting while honoring our history and traditions. But let's be honest, change can be scary, especially when we're talking about such fundamental shifts in how we live, work, and interact with the world. How do we overcome that fear and embrace the possibilities of the future?
The report suggests that one way to combat fear is through education and awareness. The more we understand about the challenges and opportunities of the future, the less intimidating they become. It's about engaging in open and honest conversations about the future, exploring different perspectives, and recognizing that we're all in this together.
So it's about fostering a sense of shared purpose and collective action. But knowledge alone isn't enough, right? We also need to cultivate a sense of hope and optimism. How do they suggest we do that in a world that can often feel overwhelming and uncertain?
They emphasize the importance of focusing on solutions, not just problems. They encourage seeking out stories of innovation and resilience, celebrating the individuals and organizations working to create a better future. They remind us that throughout history, humans have faced seemingly insurmountable challenges and emerged stronger and more resilient.
I love that. It's about choosing to focus on the light, not just the darkness. But hope alone isn't enough, right? We also need to take action. What specific steps can individuals take to start building that future we want to see?
They encourage individuals to find their own unique ways to contribute. It might involve changing your consumption habits, volunteering in your community, supporting organizations, working on issues you care about, or simply having conversations with friends and family about these challenges and opportunities.
Yeah.
Every action, no matter how small, can contribute to a ripple effect of positive change.
That's a powerful message. It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in shaping the future. But let's be realistic. The world is full of complex systems and entrenched power structures. How can individual actions truly make a difference in the face of such massive challenges?
The report argues that while systemic change is essential, it often starts with individual actions. Those individual actions can create a groundswell of support, a shift in consciousness that can ultimately lead to larger-scale transformation. They point to historical examples like the Civil Rights Movement or the fight for gender equality, where individual acts of courage and defiance ultimately led to profound societal shifts.
So it's about believing in the power of collective action, that even small, seemingly insignificant actions can contribute to a larger movement for change. But let's face it, change can be slow and incremental. How do we stay motivated and engaged over the long haul, especially when progress can feel elusive?
They emphasize the importance of finding joy and meaning in the process. It's about connecting with others who share your values, celebrating small victories along the way, and recognizing that building a better future is a marathon, not a sprint.
So it's about finding that balance between urgency and patience, between the fierce determination to make a difference and the acceptance that real change takes time. Okay, we've explored this concept of future literacy and its relevance to the challenges of 2042, but I'm curious, does the report delve into any specific areas where this future-oriented thinking is already being applied? Are there any real-world examples of future literacy in action?
Absolutely. They highlight a number of initiatives around the world where future literacy is being embraced and put into practice. One example is the field of urban planning. Many cities are now incorporating future literacy principles into their planning processes, using scenario planning and trend analysis to design cities that are more resilient, sustainable, and adaptable to future challenges.
So instead of just reacting to problems as they arise, they're proactively planning for a range of possible futures. That's fascinating. What other examples do they provide?
They highlight the growing field of anticipatory governance, where governments are using foresight and future literacy tools to develop policies that are more responsive to emerging challenges and opportunities. For example, some governments are now using horizon scanning techniques to identify potential risks and opportunities on the horizon, allowing them to develop proactive strategies for addressing those challenges.
So it's about moving beyond short-term thinking and embracing a more strategic and long-term approach to governance. What other areas are they applying these future-oriented principles to?
They mention the field of education, where some schools are now incorporating future literacy into their curricula, teaching students skills like systems thinking foresight and scenario planning. The goal is to empower young people to become active and engaged citizens prepared to navigate the complexities of the 21st century.
That's fantastic. It's about equipping the next generation with the tools and mindsets to create a better future. But let's face it, not all educational systems are created equal. Are these future literacy initiatives limited to certain countries or regions, or are they spreading more globally?
The report acknowledges that these initiatives are still in their early stages, but they're gaining traction around the world. They highlight examples from both developed and developing countries, suggesting that future literacy is a concept with global relevance and appeal.
That's encouraging. It suggests that there's a growing awareness of the need to embrace future-oriented thinking. But I'm curious, do they delve into any of the potential downsides or challenges of future literacy? Are there any risks or pitfalls associated with this approach?
They do acknowledge that future literacy is not a silver bullet. They caution against over-reliance on predictive models and emphasize the importance of humility and adaptability. They also warn against the potential for bias and manipulation, stressing the need for critical thinking and ethical considerations in any future-oriented endeavor.
So it's about recognizing that future literacy is a powerful tool, but like any tool, it can be misused. It's about wielding it responsibly and ethically. Okay, we've explored the concept of future literacy, its applications, and its potential pitfalls. But I'm curious, what's the takeaway for our listener? How can they apply these ideas to their own lives?
The report's central message is that the future is not something that happens to us, it's something we create. Future literacy is about empowering ourselves to become active participants in shaping the future we want to see. It's about developing the skills and mindsets to navigate a world of accelerating change and complexity.
So it's about embracing the unknown, cultivating a sense of agency, and taking those small, everyday actions that align with the future we want to create. But let's face it, the future can feel overwhelming and uncertain. What advice would you give to someone feeling paralyzed by fear or doubt?
I would say start small. Focus on one area where you feel passionate and empowered to make a difference. Connect with others who share your concerns. Celebrate small victories along the way. And remember, the future is not predetermined. It's a canvas waiting to be painted by our choices and actions, both individual and collective.
That's a beautiful and empowering message. It reminds us that we all have the power to make a difference. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, but I have a feeling there's more to explore. What other insights does this report offer about the world of 2042?
One particularly intriguing aspect they delve into is the evolving relationship between humans and technology.
Okay, that's a topic that always sparks debate and speculation. What specific aspects of this relationship do they highlight?
They explore how technology is not just a tool, but a force that's shaping our values, our identities, and our very understanding of what it means to be human.
That's a profound thought. So it's not just about the gadgets and gizmos, it's about the deeper, more philosophical implications of our entanglement with technology. I'm definitely intrigued to dive deeper into that. But before we do, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll explore this evolving human-technology relationship and unpack some of the specific ways it's likely to play out in the world of 2042. All right, we're back and ready to explore this fascinating frontier, the evolving relationship between humans and technology. It's a topic that always sparks debate, and I have to admit I'm a bit of a tech enthusiast myself, so I'm eager to hear what the report has to say about how this relationship might unfold in the coming years.
Well, they make a really compelling point right from the start. They argue that technology is no longer just a tool we use, it's becoming deeply intertwined with our lives, shaping our values, our identities, even our understanding of what it means to be human.
That's a pretty profound statement. So it's not just about the latest gadgets and apps. It's about a more fundamental shift in how we interact with and perceive the world around us.
Exactly. And they delve into some pretty specific examples of how this might play out in 2042. One area they focus on is the rise of augmented reality and virtual reality, those immersive technologies that blur the lines between the physical and digital worlds.
Ah, yes. AR and VR, the stuff of sci-fi movies, becoming increasingly commonplace in our everyday lives. I can definitely see how those technologies could have a profound impact on how we experience and interact with the world. What specific predictions do they make about how AR and VR might be used in 2042?
They envision a world where AR and VR are seamlessly integrated into our everyday lives, transforming everything from education and entertainment to healthcare and work. Imagine attending a virtual conference where you feel like you're actually in the room with other participants or exploring historical landmarks from the comfort of your living room.
It sounds like these technologies could open up a whole new realm of possibilities, making experiences more immersive and accessible. But they also have the potential to be quite isolating, don't they? Could this lead to a future where people are more connected to their devices than to each other?
That's a valid concern, and the report doesn't shy away from addressing those potential pitfalls. They emphasize the importance of using these technologies responsibly and thoughtfully, ensuring that they enhance human connection rather than replace it.
So it's about striking that balance, using technology to augment our relationships and experiences, but not letting it become a substitute for genuine human connection. What other aspects of the human-technology relationship do they explore?
They delve into the growing role of artificial intelligence, particularly its potential impact on the workforce and the economy.
Ah, AI, the topic that always seems to generate a mix of excitement and anxiety. What specific predictions do they make about how AI might shape the world of 2042?
They envision a future where AI automates many routine tasks, freeing up humans to focus on more creative and fulfilling work. Imagine AI assistants handling administrative tasks, allowing doctors to spend more time with patients or teachers to focus on personalized instruction.
That sounds like a positive application of AI, using it to enhance human capabilities and improve our quality of life. But what about the potential for job displacement? Won't AI also lead to significant job losses in certain sectors?
They acknowledge that AI will undoubtedly disrupt the job market, but they also emphasize the importance of adaptation and reskilling. They argue that the key is to focus on developing those uniquely human skills that AI can't replicate, skills like creativity, critical thinking, empathy, and complex problem solving.
So it's about preparing for a future where humans and AI work collaboratively, each leveraging their strengths to achieve common goals. But beyond the economic implications, what about the ethical considerations of AI? Do they address the potential risks and challenges of developing such powerful technology?
Absolutely. They stress the importance of developing AI ethically, ensuring that it's used for good and doesn't exacerbate existing inequalities or create new ones.
So it's about ensuring that AI serves humanity, not the other way around. What specific steps do they recommend taking to ensure the ethical development and deployment of AI?
They advocate for establishing clear ethical guidelines and regulations for AI development, promoting transparency and accountability in AI systems, and fostering open dialogue and collaboration among researchers, policymakers, and the public to address the potential risks and challenges of AI.
It sounds like they're advocating for a cautious but optimistic approach to AI development, recognizing both its potential benefits and its potential pitfalls. But beyond AR, VR, and AI, what other aspects of the human-technology relationship do they explore?
They delve into the increasing prevalence of wearable technology and its potential impact on our health and well-being. Imagine a future where wearable sensors continuously monitor our vital signs, alerting us to potential health issues before they become serious, or providing personalized fitness recommendations based on our individual needs and goals.
That sounds like a future where we have much greater control over our own health and well-being. But what about privacy concerns? Won't all this data collection raise concerns about who has access to our personal health information and how it's being used?
They acknowledge those concerns and emphasize the importance of establishing clear guidelines and regulations for data privacy and security. They argue that individuals should have control over their own data and be able to choose how it's collected, used, and shared.
So it's about finding that balance between leveraging the benefits of technology while protecting individual privacy and autonomy. It seems like every aspect of this human-technology relationship involves navigating these complex trade-offs. But beyond these specific predictions, what's the overall message they convey about the future of this relationship?
Their overall message is that the relationship between humans and technology is coevolutionary. As technology evolves, so do we. And the choices we make today will shape not only the future of technology, but also the future of humanity.
That's a powerful reminder that we're not just passive bystanders in this technological revolution, we're active participants shaping its trajectory. But with all these rapid advancements and uncertainties, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. What advice would you give to someone feeling anxious or uncertain about the future of technology?
I would say embrace curiosity. Stay informed about emerging technologies and their potential impacts. Engage in conversations about the ethical implications of technology. And remember that the future is not predetermined. It's a canvas waiting to be painted by our choices and actions, both individual and collective.
That's a hopeful and empowering message. It reminds us that we have agency, that we can shape the future of technology in ways that benefit humanity.
Absolutely. And one final thought I found particularly insightful is that the most important skills for navigating the future may not be technical skills, but human skills. Skills like empathy, compassion, creativity, critical thinking, and the ability to connect with others across differences.
That's a profound insight. It suggests that in a world increasingly dominated by technology, it's our uniquely human qualities that will become even more valuable. Well, this has been a truly fascinating and thought-provoking deep dive into the world of 2042. We've explored a range of challenges and opportunities from climate change and resource scarcity to the evolving relationship between humans and technology. But I think the most important takeaway is that the future is not something that simply happens to us. It's something we create.
I completely agree. And while the challenges may seem daunting, the report reminds us that humans have an incredible capacity for innovation and resilience. Throughout history, we faced seemingly insurmountable obstacles and found ways to overcome them. And I believe we have the potential to do the same with the challenges of the 21st century.
That's a hopeful and inspiring note to end on. So to our listener, as you navigate your own journey through the complexities of the present and the uncertainties of the future, remember that you have the power to make a difference. Embrace curiosity, cultivate hope, and above all, never stop learning, growing, and striving to create a better world.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.